We've got to bring our governments back together. So we're using Angola, Namibia, South Africa to pull the EPA countries, the SADC countries back together to negotiate with the Europeans, firstly. Secondly, that we must consolidate our regions so that we are not so dependent on external trade, okay? And if, as the gentleman from the ruling party in Sweden says, you haven't got infrastructures, yeah, we have big programs to develop our infrastructures, okay? We have big programs to develop our services, but we need the space and the policy rights, and yes, maybe we need some aid, but it is for us to decide what aid we want, from whom, for what purpose. So as I said at the beginning, if we are going to need Swedish engineering firms to come to help us develop our infrastructure, that must be for us to decide collectively and have a contract with firms to come and provide services for us on XYZ terms, on XYZ criteria. This is called getting back our own policy rights, our own autonomy, our own political rights. And the reason why we constantly emphasize regional, collective, because small countries on their own cannot do these. We have to have, just as weak people know they must form co-ops, or they must form trade unions, or they must form communities, we know in Africa that's the only way we're going to be able to deal with a very difficult global environment. And for example, if we are now coming to major climate crises in Africa, we can only deal with water crises. How are we going to share our water when our rivers pass through all our countries and our lakes belong to various countries? We have to cooperate. We have to cooperate on energy so that we don't have to keep importing Danish, what do you call them? We can create these things ourselves, and that's the only way. When you have environmental problems and economic problems and water problems, we've got to solve these by regions. And it is by forming regions that we will be able to deal with the European Union. So instead of being tiny little Lesotho, 1.5 million people negotiating with the European Union, what is it? 300 million. It is ridiculous, okay? And that is why we say we must group together to deal. And one last thing I want to say, which I think is quite important, is actually, from our side, we are not saying review and revise, okay? We are saying prioritize regional integration and cooperation. And until our regional processes are fully and organically functioning, we cannot consider these terms, okay? That is our position, and that is the position of the governments. That is the official position of the African Union and of the African regions. And if you watch the press, you will see that the SADC summit, and the SACU agreements are all saying the same thing. First, we must consolidate our regions so that we are in a position to negotiate with the Europeans. And as I say, we are not talking about autarky. We're not saying that we can survive in the world on our own. But we say that we must have the autonomy to decide what our relations will be, where we will have free trade, or where we will have protected trade, or where we will have our own investment, or where we will invite foreign investment. And if we invite foreign investment, it will have to be on agreed terms, okay? And that is the difference between this free trade, free market, neoliberal model, which just says, open your countries, and the traders and service providers and investors will decide what is good for you. No, that is colonialism. That is colonialism, okay? And that is what we are trying to get away from. So we look forward to your support. Please write letters to your newspapers now, okay? Write letters and write reports and phone your MPs, because really you have power to change it. And we are really seeing that public opinion in Europe is changing bit by bit by bit. The problem now, it's a problem of power, unfortunately, not just opinion. So you will work out how you do it.
Okay.